Good morning, everyone. This week in Collective Worship, we're listening to Johann Sebastian Bach and his composition called Air. But who was Johann Sebastian Bach?
Meet Johann Sebastian Bach. Johann was born in Eisenach, Germany in 1685. Germany is the home of cuckoo clocks, pretzels, and the Neuschwanstein Castle, which inspired Walt Disney to create the Sleeping Beauty Castle for Disneyland. As a child, Johann's father taught him to play the violin and harpsichord. His brother, Johann Christoph Bach, taught him to play the organ. In 1707, Bach married his second cousin, Maria Barbara Bach, and they had 7 children. In 1708, Bach accepted a post as the court composer, organist, and principal violinist for the Duke of Weimar. The Duke probably liked organ music because it was during this time that Bach wrote most of his organ music, including his toccata and fugue in D minor, which is one of the best pieces ever written for the organ.
Our theme this week in Collective Worship is all about online safety. Now, it's actually next week that there is a national day all about online safety, but we're learning and looking at it 1 week in advance. Here's a short video that recaps lots of the knowledge that you already have about online safety.
Have you ever used a computer to look up information, or watch a video, or play a game? Then you've probably used the internet. The internet is a system that connects millions of computers around the world. Sometimes we use that system to watch or read things. Maybe a scientist in Australia takes a picture of a kangaroo and puts it on the internet. We can use our phones, tablets, or computers to connect to that picture and see it. Sometimes we use the internet to communicate or talk to people. Your teacher might email your parents, and then they can see his or her message on their computer. You might play games on the internet where you can message your friends. But just like there are strangers in real life, there are also strangers on the internet. If you get a message from someone you don't know, tell a grown-up right away. Sometimes it's hard to tell who strangers are on the internet. In person, you know who your parents and family and friends are because you recognize them. On the internet, it's a lot easier for a stranger to pretend to be someone you know. If you get a message asking you to share personal information, even if it looks like it's from someone you know, tell a grown-up right away. What's personal information? Things like your name, your school, your address, or even pictures of yourself. That information is private and shouldn't be shared online without an adult's permission. Don't be embarrassed to ask a grown-up if a message is okay. They can help you block a stranger so they don't contact you again. Most importantly, don't keep secrets from grown-ups about the internet. If you get a message from anyone that tells you to keep the message a secret, get help from an adult you trust right away. What about websites? There are plenty of websites that are safe for kids, but sometimes you might accidentally click on a picture or a video that isn't meant for kids. Tell a grown-up right away so they can help you. The internet is a great tool for learning, but it's important to use it safely. Be careful of strangers, keep your personal information private, and tell a grown-up right away if something you see makes you uncomfortable. Happy learning!
It's important to recap on some of our prior learning. This next video goes into a bit more detail about the dangers of sharing information online and accepting friend requests from people that you don't know.
Welcome to CyberSmart Forever. When you see this symbol, pause the video and your teacher will run a class discussion. Hi, I'm Taylor, and I'd like to tell you a story about the time I accidentally shared way too much online. This is me talking to my friend Jane. She's 13, a few years older than me. so she gets to do lots of fun stuff way before me. Today, Jane has been showing me this app on her smartphone called QuickPic.
And the best thing is you can share whatever pictures you want because they get deleted after 10 seconds. It's great for sending secret messages. Plus, if you don't get it, you'll miss out on all my silly selfies.
That does sound like fun, but I don't know. My dad made me promise not to download new apps without asking him first. And anyway, don't you have to be 13 to get QuickPic?
Oh, don't worry about that. Your dad doesn't need to know. And it's just for fun. I hope you get it. And then, it's silly selfie time!
I didn't want to do anything wrong, but I really wanted to have fun with Jane. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? I decided to let Jane put QuickPic on my phone, and that night Jane sent a selfie of her and her dog Indy. Indy was slobbering all over Jane's face, and Jane looked grossed out. It was pretty funny. The next day, I got a message from QuickPic that someone called Big Mitch 14 sent me a friend request. I decided to ask Jane about it.
Oh, that's just Mitch. You know, the tall guy who always sits up the back of the bus?
Oh, I know who he is. That's weird though. I mean, he's never really spoken to me before.
Well, he and I are friends at QuickPic. He's so cool. You have got to accept his request.
Mitch wasn't a friend of mine, but Jane said he was okay. Do you know anyone that has added people to their accounts that they didn't know personally? What happened? I decided to accept Mitch's friend request. Later that night, while I was in the kitchen, I got a pic from Mitch. It was a selfie Mitch had taken, only he was cross-eyed and his cheeks were puffed out like a frog. It was pretty funny. Next, I got a pic from Jane, where she was holding up the tip of her nose so she looked like a pig. It was hilarious. I laughed so hard I spilt my drink all over my pants. And since it was my turn to take a selfie, I shared my first pic on QuickPic and wrote, "You are hilarious." Laughed out loud so hard I spilt my drink. Now it looks like I wet myself. Then something happened. QuickPic sent me a message saying Big Mitch 14 had saved my pic. I didn't even know you could do that. So I decided to ask Jane about it on the bus. The next day when I got on the bus, everyone was staring at me and giggling. I was freaked out, so I asked Jane what was going on. She said Mitch had shared my selfie with heaps of other kids from school, only without the caption I wrote, which made it look like I really had wet myself. I went bright red. I didn't know what to say, but Jane stood up for me.
Mitch, that was a really mean thing to do. I think you'd better say sorry to Taylor and delete that photo right now.
Sorry, Taylor. I guess that was pretty lame of me. But I emailed it around already, so I'm not sure if I can delete it.
Mitch had emailed my pic to a whole bunch of kids at school. What do you think? Once something gets shared around online, is there a way of deleting it? Well, that was super embarrassing, and it took a while to get over it. I got teased for ages, but I'm okay now. I learned 3 really important lessons from all of this, and I'd like to share them with you. We might know more about tech than our parents, but sometimes we need help with life's ups and downs. If you ever need help, talk to someone you trust. Be careful who you friend online. And be careful what you share on the internet, because once it's out there, it's out there. Thanks for listening to my story. Have fun online and be safe.
The story of Adam and Eve and the apple in the Garden of Eden taught us that temptation is everywhere. We've learnt that if our information is personal, then it stays personal. We've learnt that once something is on the internet, it stays on the internet. We've learnt about the importance of being kind. Another word for being polite and kind is etiquette. And on the internet, we call it having good netiquette. And we learnt, before we do anything, say anything, or put anything online, we think. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Okay, time for a prayer. And if you'd like this prayer to be your prayer, it's Amen at the end. You're welcome to look at the candle flame, or you can put your hands and your eyes together. If this prayer is not for you, then take this time to reflect on what you've heard today. Dear Lord, help us to remember that before we put or do or say anything online, help us to think. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Amen. Well, that concludes our collective worship for today. Remember, work hard, be kind, look after yourselves, and I'll see you around school.